Greetings to everyone. My name is Cosimo Palma and I am a PhD student in artificial intelligence at the University of Naples L'Orientale and the University of Pisa. In my research, as well in this presentation, I'm focusing about modeling narratives. Today, I will share with you my findings about a research regarding more specifically modeling the interestingness on the event level in short stories. The main outline of my presentation will be the most canonical one. So without further ado, let's dive into the matter. So the reason of this kind of research is rooted in my master thesis, where I was first researching whether self-similarity occur in text as well as it does in mathematical or geometrical shapes and in some biological organism, being stories as well a fact of life, human life. So this brought to some findings that nowadays view from another point of view may bring to the consideration that they could be exploited to enhance the modeling of narratives according to interestingness. We know that nowadays natural language generation, mostly automatic story generation, delivers outstanding results, for which concerns also the lexical human likeness. But when it comes to the planning of the event of sequence, in the best case we have coherent and logical canonical sequences which don't bring much novelty and therefore interest in the reader. So today we will explore two models, the Lindenmayer systems and the magic squares, as possible gateway for another consideration about the distribution of interestingness in stories, which are in our case modeled as time series of self-information values. The self-information, also called surprisal, is nothing else as the inverse measure of the expectedness of a given event. If we have a sequence of events, each one measured by a wow, this basic measure for surprisal, we can measure the divergence, or better said in statistical terms, we can measure whether they are generated from a theoretical, the same theoretical distribution by the Kullback-Leibler divergence, or even by other similar metrics and tests, such as the Epps singleton or the chi-square. We start also from the consideration that this distribution of interestingness cannot be even, cannot be exaggerated, because as Frankes saw into his work about cybernetic aesthetics, the information flow from sense organs to brain must not exceed a precise number of bits per second. Too much would mean confusion, and too few would mean uninterestingness. In another work, the shapes of about shapes of stories, we see the use of biometric sensor, the hedonic analysis, the expression of readers of some books taken from the Gutenberg project are measured by sensors, and then by averaging among all the readers, we have at the end like a time wave of all values, which in this case are range between happiness and sadness, which brings to the consideration of whether a more general and universal and objective measure, which could be obtained also without displaying so much laboratory work, could be possible. Starting so from the initial premises on self-similarity, we use the Lindenmayer system, which is has in this case used to model some fractal shapes, such as the Cox curve or the Hilbert's curve. The Cox curve is equivalent to the 2 Morse sequence. If we refer to the model of Vladimir Prop, whereby we have a theoretical sequence of narratives which are strictly bound to each other, which come first, cannot usually come after, and so on, we can model these also in a Lindenmayer fashion by, in a relaxed way, of course, by stating at the beginning all the set of sets, the set of sets required by us, and their related specification. For instance, C stands for the list of the atomic components of every narrative, 1, 2, 3, where 1 stands for beginning, 2 for development or conflict, and 3 for ending. So, and we see already at this level a display of self-similarity, because every episode, every event is modeled can be modeled as a story. And we generate therefore the sets of all narratives, of all narrative sequences, according to the rule listed in the second part on the right hand, which in practically say that after the beginning can come just a conflict part or an end part, and a conflict part can be followed only by ending part. And in case we have an ending part, we can have a total ending of the story, or upload the previous number into the sequence of the atomic components, and then moving on again from the beginning. What is the relationship with magic squares in this history? If we consider the 2 Morse sequence, it can be displayed as in the first matrix in a square matrix fashion, and we notice that all the properties of the magic squares are conserved. The sum of the columns and the rows and of diagonals stay the same, which is very important for our case, because in this way we have not only evenness of the information stream, but also a clear bundle of relationship on the column level, and we have also a high entropy. So without knowing this distribution at the first sight, we would not recognize patterns. The second matrix displays the magic square of the sun, where the n number, whose n number is 36. The sum of every column and of every diagonal and row is always the same. And the third one is another matrix created by me to not allow transposition and rotation of the magic square, because the story cannot be rotated and translated. So to model the story, we need absolute values, and these absolute values are obtained by dividing by 2 the n number, in which case 36, and subtracting to it the main value of our interest. For instance, in the first case we have 6, so 18, 36 divided by 2. 18 minus 6 is 12. 18 minus 32, the second value, the absolute value will be 14, and so on and so forth. In this way, we see that there is a huge pike of interestingness in the first part of the narrative, followed by a small and a low flow of interestingness in the second one, and another peak in the third one. This kind of pattern has been already researched in literature by Levi-Strauss, where he recognized bundles of relationships also on the column level. By arranging some myths in a matrix, he recognized that not only in the temporal sequence but also on the paradigmatic sequence there are important relationships that are maintained and probably maybe unconsciously perceived also from the reader. So here we have the previous picture from the distribution of emotion value in Harry Potter and the magic square. And to prove the concept of their possible similarity, I've taken two stories, one short and one long. The long one is Harry Potter, the short one is the magic square, is the Queen Bee, and we notice that some patterns are repeating themselves. So the question behind this kind of conceptualization is this: how interestingness values are distributed in stories that are universally acknowledged to be interesting. And we see that their distribution is actually follow a pattern, which may also lead to the consideration that they are even generated by the same theoretical statistical distribution. Even though the results are encouraging, I have used here the Kolmogorov, Smirnov, and the Epps singleton test to acknowledge this. Even though this may lead and nourish further research into this field, of course, these results are too unevenly obtained according to different metrics for interestingness, and there are too many stories, the vectors are too short, and so on. So what do we understand from all this? That by leveraging the intuition that self-information and self-similarity are two basic concepts of stories, and stories acknowledged as beautiful, such as the fairy tales of Prop, of the Russian tradition or of the German, are always following a precise pattern. We can inject this pattern into automatic story generation, not only with rules, but also by using statistics, which mean that interestingness values must be distributed in a certain way throughout the story in order to elicit aesthetic pleasure. Thank you very much for the attention, and I'm awaiting your considerations.